And welcome to this live edition of Jerusalem Dispatch, International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem. And tonight we have a very special guest from Israel to say that I have had over 10 years in broadcasting, and I think, and I do believe that our special guest tonight has the most remarkable story and the most incredible life that I've actually heard in over 10 years of broadcasting. So it's an absolute privilege that tonight we have Shaya Harsit, who is not only a Holocaust survivor, but he was also a colonel in the Israeli Air Force and fought to defend Israel's skies. And it's also a reminder as we do this program of the importance of standing with Israel, standing with the Jewish people, but also supporting the vital work that the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, UK is doing in terms of blessing Israel and the Jewish people. So I'm just going to hand you over to Dr. David Elms and to pray for tonight's proceedings as we hear Shaya's remarkable and amazing story, and also to pray for the event that may God touch our hearts with his passion and love for the nation of Israel and the Jewish people. Over to you, David.
Well, thank you, Simon. And indeed, we would like to extend our gratitude and our thanks to you, Shaya, for being with us tonight. And it is a very important function for us within the ICEJ, because our mandate is taken from Isaiah 40, and it says to bring comfort ye my people. And of course, those who bring comfort can't be the Jewish people themselves, it has to be others. And we pride ourselves in being those who bring comfort to Israel. And one of our greatest projects is our Holocaust Survivors Home, which is in Haifa. And we in the UK play a major part in that amazing venture. And we've met many people, heard many stories. And tonight we just look forward to another amazing story. So thank you for being with us, and thank you, viewers, for looking in. And may we now just pray and commit our time to the Lord. And we thank you, Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, for this honor, that, Lord, even out of terror and horror, Lord, that you can bring good. And we do pray, Lord, we pray for Shaya. We pray, Lord, that his words, Lord, will be your words. And we pray as well, Lord, that the lessons that, Lord, that he has learned and the lessons that he brings to us tonight, that they will be applied. And Lord, and that we would see, Lord, an end, Lord, to the pain and the suffering that is in this world. And may that day when the Prince of Peace arises on this earth, may it soon come. So Lord, we give everything that will happen today, and may all the glory be given to that great God, that God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. And David, would you like to introduce our video for tonight, which is called Your Embassy, Your Voice and Your Love, that does really show the complete remit of the organization and ministry that is ICEJ in blessing Israel and the Jewish people?
Yes, indeed. And again, I think for people who are looking in, you need to realize the outreach of the Christian Embassy, now just over 40 years, that we reach out into so many different nations, and yet everything focused back into Jerusalem. And what you'll see now is just a little a taster of some of our work and ministry. Thank you.
Jerusalem, the center of the Middle East, the center of the world, the city of God, and right here almost 40 years ago, led by the Holy Spirit, Christian leaders from around the world established the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, to demonstrate to the Jewish people that they are not alone, but that millions of Bible-believing Christians are standing with them, still believing in God's ancient covenant promises that He made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Today, the Christian Embassy has become an active voice of support to the Jewish people. Over the next few minutes, you will meet our team, and more importantly, you will meet those people who we could bless here in the land of Israel. It is such an exciting time to be your embassy, your voice here in the land of Israel. Take a look.
God's design to make Israel a light unto the nations. We at the ICJ are passionate about Israel and about her relationship with the world. This is why we have celebrated the Feast of Tabernacles in Jerusalem since 1980. We have now branches in more than 90 countries all over the world, and we connect believers from more than 170 nations with Israel. The plan of God for Israel also includes the plan for all the nations. This is why we are so excited, and we are looking forward to seeing even more growth in the years to come.
My name is Emma Villarreal. I represent the country of Mexico. Zechariah 14 talks about how all the nations of the world are going to come together to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. And we don't want to wait into the New Jerusalem for that to happen. We want as heaven as it is on earth, so we're starting right now.
Through the love and financial support of Christians like you, elderly Holocaust survivors are being taken care of. But this home is not just buildings. It's a loving community where we as ICJ have become, as some residents would say, the family they once lost. What an awesome privilege. And with the ongoing expansion and the new developments, we are excited about the future of this ICJ home for Holocaust survivors.
ואני מודה עם כל הלב באמת לשגרירות מה שהם עושים בשבילנו. שאחרי מה שאנחנו עברנו יש דבר כזה ואני מלא תודה. אין לי מילים להגיד כמה שזה יפה שאתם עוזרים לנו ויש לי חיים מאוד נוחים שלא היו לי אף פעם בחיים.
Because of your partnership, we've been able to dramatically impact Israeli lives. Your giving has played an active role in transforming not only individual lives, but it also impacts the future of Israel. Through our work here in Israel, we've been able to provide comfort and be a voice of hope and reconciliation for the many people groups in this land.
כאילו היה שלב שהרמתי ידיים ואמרתי, אני לא עושה בגרות, לא הולכת לבית ספר. בזכות התוכנית, אני דווקא שואפת בעתיד להיות שם בשביל תלמידים כאלה.
המלגה שקיבלתי מהשגרירות הנוצרית, ומזה שהבנתי שאנשים מסביב לעולם פשוט מאמינים בי ותומכים בי, אני יודעת שאשיג את החלום שלי.
ICEJ continues working to bring God's people home from the four corners of the earth. Because of your faithful giving, we have been able to welcome Jewish people to their biblical homeland of Israel through sponsoring flights, transportation assistance, and helping immigrants start a new life. It has been a privilege for the ICEJ to help fulfill the lifelong dreams of so many who have waited so long to return home, to reunite them with their families, and to be a part of their new beginning.
The Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, has been our friend for many, many years. Their donations and their help make days like today possible. Christians around the world, they are our best friends.
እና የበለጠ ደግሞ ለነሱ ምስጋና ነው የምናቀርበው። እኛ ምንም ማለት አንችልም። ውለታቸውን እግዚአብሔር ይክፈለው እና ደግሞ በዚህ እንዳያቆሙ እግዚአብሔር ይስጥልን። ውለታቸውን እግዚአብሔር ይክፈለው።
It is so exciting to see God rebuilding Zion, to see Him restoring His people back to their land. No matter where you live, you too can participate in what God is doing here in the land of Israel. Jesus said, "Whatever you have done to the least of my brethren, you have done to me." Today, you can show the love of Christ to His people. Let us be your embassy, your voice here in Jerusalem. And if you haven't yet partnered with us, go to icej.org/partnership and join us today.
And there we have it, a kind of wonderful overview of the ministry that is the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem. And the United Kingdom branch plays a major role in that. So if you haven't signed up, please sign up, please get involved. and support this ministry as they bless Israel and the Jewish people, particularly the Holocaust survivors and the Holocaust home, but as well as the bomb shelters as well that are actually protecting Israeli lives from Hamas's rockets and missiles. Now, I'll tell you a little bit of a story of how I came in touch with Shaya and his lovely wife, Zippy. And it was through James Patrick, based in Oxford, who was organising Mandate 100, and he got Shaya to speak in the House of Commons to mark the 100th anniversary of the start of the British Mandate of Palestine. And of course, also a big part of Shaya's story is that he survived the Exodus ship. And we all know about Leon Norris's incredible novel called The Exodus. And Shaya was actually on board that ship that was stopped from reaching the coastline of Israel, made up of Holocaust survivors and those desperate to build a new life for themselves in the only nation and country that wanted them. And that was the state of Israel before the state was born. So he was part of the Exodus ship. And I had the privilege back in July of last year to interview Shaya and his lovely wife, Zippy, who's also a Holocaust survivor, to share their remarkable stories. But tonight, we're not going to talk about Shaya's an incredible Holocaust story, but we're going to talk about his career defending the skies of Israel and being part of the legendary Israeli Air Force. So I'm going to hand over to David to read out Shaya's remarkable survival during the Holocaust, and we'll pick it up with Shaya himself talking about his remarkable career serving with distinction in the Israeli Air Force.
So Shaya was born into a wealthy family in Warsaw, and he had an older half-sibling from both of his parents' first marriage. Upon the German invasion, when Shaya was 5 years old, his father fled because he was involved in political and religious organizations that made him a likely target for the Nazis. A few days later, Shaya and his mother left Warsaw to join his father in the east in Soviet territory. Soviet forces arrested the family, accusing them of being hostile to the USSR because they had Polish citizenship. Shaya was interned in a camp with his parents. Life in the camp was difficult. There was never enough food. And after the Nazi invasion of the USSR, on the 22nd of June, 1941, Shaya and his family awoke to find the Soviet guards had abandoned the camp and that they were free to leave. Shaya's family traveled to Uzbekistan and then Kazakhstan. Despite both parents being employed, the family suffered from hunger. Shaya's father thought he would be better off in an orphanage, and so he took Shaya to one despite his mother's objections. Shaya escaped from that orphanage that first evening, and he walked all night on his own to return to his mother, who fainted when he knocked on the door and vowed never to be separated from him again. Interestingly enough, if Shaya had stayed at that orphanage, he would have been taken to Palestine as one of the children of Tehran. And after the war ended, Shaya's family returned to Warsaw and were then in a displaced persons camp in Germany. In the DP camp, Shaya remembers meeting General Eisenhower and reciting a poem for him. Shaya's father had always wanted to move to Palestine, and the family boarded the Exodus to travel there. The ship and its passengers were arrested by the British upon arrival in Haifa and were not allowed to disembark. Instead, the ship was sent back to Germany. Only after the creation of the State of Israel were Shaya and his family able to make Aliyah. Shaya recalled that no one wanted to hear the stories of survival during the Holocaust, and he himself wanted to become a true Israeli and leave all of the past behind. Shaya initially wanted to be a paratrooper, but he became a navigator instead. And now for tonight's special guest, Shaya Harsit.
So Shaya, it's such a pleasure and such a privilege to have this opportunity to hear your remarkable story. We need to make your story into a film, because I know it would be a blockbuster, because it is so compelling and there is so much into it. So thank you so much. And you are a true Israeli, you are a true hero. And we all want to thank you for defending Israel's skies. So let's start with you joining the Israeli Air Force in July of 1954, and that's with the Air Force Academy. Share with us why you wanted to join, or how did you end up joining the Israeli Air Force?
Well, actually, as said before, I wanted to join the paratroopers. I had no idea about Air Force, about airplanes, but I wanted to fight for the state of Israel. Anyhow, in the process of joining the paratroopers, I got an invitation for exams to join the Israeli Air Force, the flying school. Well, I said, let's try. I tried, I passed the exams, and I started the course of the Israeli Flying School in July 1954. I succeeded to finish the school as a navigator, as a second lieutenant, in 25 of March 1956. And then I went through the course of missions, course of missions, and very soon, on October 29, there was the famous war of the Sinai campaign, which started with the British armed forces and the French armed forces, and we dropped paratroopers in the west side of Sinai in order to try and get a part, which Ben-Gurion actually decided upon, a part in getting a certain control on the Egyptians' armed forces. So I was in one of the formations as a leading navigator and dropped the paratroopers in Sinai, and then returned back to the bases. This was the first actual flight, operational flight that I had in my life.
And what was that? It was called the Suez Crisis of '56, and it started in it when President Nasser of Egypt overthrew King Farouk, the actual king, to become president of Egypt. He blocked the Red Sea to Israeli shipping, but also the British were very concerned that he nationalized the Suez Canal, which was vital to the British colonial empire, particularly India. And so the French and the British, together with Israel, decided that we need to show Nasser a lesson. So what was it like then being part of your first combat operation by dropping Israeli paratroopers into the Sinai, in which Israel was very successful in taking the Sinai off the Egyptians?
Well, actually, after we dropped the paratroopers in a place called Mitle, it was a very narrow pass towards the Suez Canal. And the reason that we dropped there, the paratroopers, was in order to stop any Egyptian troops to get contact with the Israelis in order to block the pass. So after we came back to the base, we had to support those paratroopers with food, with ammunition, with jeeps, with anything. And we started an air train in order to land on a very, very dangerous pass in the Sinai during night, but we succeeded, and we actually we controlled totally the Sinai up to the Suez Canal, but that was for only a few months, because then the USSR, together with the Americans, with the US government or president, they decided that we had to withdraw. And there was also a kind of a warning towards Israel that if we do not withdraw from Sinai, the Russians will interfere and they will get to Egypt in order to force us to withdraw from Sinai. So according to Ben-Gurion's decisions, after I think about 5 or 6 months that we were in Sinai, we withdrew back to the normal lines between us and the Egyptians in this west, in the east side of Sinai.
Thank you. Shaya, can you share with us what's a remarkable fact of history that very, very few people know this, that of the 300 aircrew who served in the Israeli Air Force from the mid-1950s during the Sinai campaign of 56, known as the Suez Crisis, 120 were Holocaust survivors. Survivors filled various capacities such as fighters, pilots, squadron commanders, and air base. Sorry, just leave my notes here. So they were present at critical decision-making junctions for the Israeli Air Force. And there's a quote here, the people of rebirth, as they were called then, an integral part of the tradition and the birth of the Israeli Air Force. Share with us what attracted Holocaust survivors like yourself to actually be part of the Israeli Air Force, and having survived the horrors, which no one can possibly actually imagine what you went through, then became on to actually go and serve with distinction with the Israeli Air Force?
Well, during the 50s, so actually in the Sinai campaign, the pilots and navigators in the Israeli Air Force were about 300. Out of those 300, 142 Holocaust survivors were navigators and pilots, and one of them is myself. And actually, we were the base of the Israeli Air Force to grow, to build itself, and to become what it's known not only today, but years ago, but even today. And we faced and we are facing a lot of threats today, especially Iran. But the Israeli Air Force today, I'm sure, and I'm very much in contact with the Israeli Air Force, I'm sure that we can manage if we need to.
Absolutely, which is just an incredible story. Shaya, can you also talk about the build up to the war in 1967, known as the Six-Day War? We know that this was a miracle for Israel, that Israel tripled her size within 6 days, took back Jerusalem, took control of the Sinai from Egypt, took control of Judea and Samaria from Jordan, but also then took control of the Golan Heights from Syria as well. But prior to that, in the build-up to this war, many Israeli commentators were fearing that the Jewish people, the nation of Israel, were facing another Holocaust. In the Israeli Air Force, can you just share with us what the build-up to the Six-Day War was actually like, and what was the thinking in the Israeli Air Force at the time?
Well, actually, the build-up by the Soviets of Egypt and Syria was very, very strong. And I remember a gathering of all the pilots and the navigators. I was then a lieutenant, a young lieutenant, in a certain base of the Israeli Air Force. And the one who was speaking to us was the commander of the Israeli Air Force, Ezer Weizmann. And he was very, very worried what will go on with all the airplanes, tanks, and other battle instruments that Egypt and Syria got. The situation was that the prime minister, who was Eshkol, he was quite worried, and he was actually, when he spoke to the people of Israel on the radio, he was not exactly an example to a good speech, because his words were, you could feel that he doesn't know what to do. But the commander of the Israeli Air Force, who was Mordechai Hot, he succeeded Ezer Weizmann. He trained us so well during all the years from 56 to 67, with all repeating and repeating the targets. We knew about every single airplane which stood in any airbase of Egypt and Syria. We knew exactly everyone who went to the air, knew exactly what he has to attack, knew exactly what his target is. So the Israeli Air Force was so trained and so ready that when it happened, the nation was shocked. The whole war was a 6-day war, but actually the two air forces, the Egyptian Air Force and the Syrian Air Force, were totally destroyed within 6 hours. They were left
incredible. 6
hours, hundreds of airplanes on the ground, some in air battles, especially in Egypt, but most of the two air forces were totally destroyed. So we gave a free and open sky to our armed forces to get to the Suez Canal within 6 days. And this is the reason that the war is called the 6-Day War in 1967. Because if not the Air Force, I don't know what would happen. Even today, I want to make it very, very clear. Our belief, especially mine as an ex-Air Force man, in our Air Force is totally, we believe totally that if we have to, whatever the mission is, we'll do it, and we'll do it in the right way.
Didn't the Israeli Air Force in the 6-Day War break the record for the number of actually sorties carried out in one single day? And share with us the challenge really of actually taking the Egyptians and the Syrians by surprise in taking out both their armies. But also what's not widely known is that the Israeli Air Force also took out the Iraqi Air Force as well to stop the Iraqis from attacking Israel. Could share with us the magnitude of an operation like that, because this is unprecedented in military history.
Well, first of all, I didn't mention before the Iraqis, but yes, we attacked the airbase of the Iraqis called H3, which is about 350 miles from the borders of Israel. And we attacked it with our French airplanes called Vautour. Anyhow, when we didn't even believe that it's going to happen, because we knew that we are good, we knew all the targets, we knew everything, but to totally destroy two air forces or three air forces within 6. Actually, also we attacked two Lebanon airplanes in a dogfight. They were shot down, but we did not attack any airbase in Lebanon. So when it happened, you cannot imagine what was that day in Israel, how happy the people were, because actually we knew that after the Air Force, the 3 air forces are destroyed, it will be a success, and it was a success. Now, the amount of sorties we did in the first day to both targets, Egypt and Syria, and only on the second day we attacked Iraq, but on the first day we did about 310, 320 sorties for an air force, which is about, we had about 8 squadrons, about 180 airplanes, 300 sorties, which means 2.5 sorties for each airplane, 2.5 sorties for each pilot, which is unbelievable. It was never done, I think, before in any war in the world.
And just for viewers watching, a sortie is a military mission. So this is just one Israeli aircraft flying to Egypt on its target and coming back. So to do over 300 in one day It's absolutely astonishing feat in aviation and military history as well. Can you just share with us the mood and jubilation, particularly within the Israeli Air Force, knowing that you guys saved Israel, because the consequences of not taking out the Egyptian Air Force, of not taking out the Syrian Air Force, and even the Iraqi Air Force, meant that the Egyptians could have bombed Tel Aviv, they could have bombed Jerusalem, there would have been a lot more casualties. So just explain to us the mood within the amongst the pilots and navigators and those who actually served in the Israeli Air Force, to know that they had protected Israel's skies and they had protected the communities of Israel from death and destruction.
Well, I can tell you one thing, that to go out in the streets of any place, especially Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, in the uniform, as a pilot or as a navigator of Israeli Air Force, it was dangerous because people were kissing you, was hugging you, they almost killed you from all love and all admiration. And I remember that after 7 or 8 days, I had to go to visit someone in Tel Aviv. I couldn't pass the street. I couldn't, because I was in my uniform and I couldn't pass the street. It's unbelievable, the admiration that our Air Force people had in those days.
Amazing, amazing. And I have to ask you as well, so share what it was like afterwards. So from 1968 to a year after you served with distinction in Israel's war known as the 6-Day War, you were posted to London with the Israeli embassy as an
69
attaché, 69, sorry, as an air attaché. What was it like to be posted to Britain? And share with us how you developed a strong relationship with the Royal Air Force and members of the Royal Air Force.
Well, you know, an air attaché, he has his own, he has a certain missions that he has to do within his stay in the country. But my main mission in those days was to lecture squadrons, air bases, flying school, flying academy of the Royal Air Force. There was not one single week that I was not invited to lecture in a certain base or in a certain squadron, because they wanted to know how did we do that? How happened? And I could tell them most of what happened, but not everything, because there were certain secrets. And in my stay, during being an air attaché 3 years, from 69 to 72, I really learned a lot of the Royal Air Force. I flew in the Royal Air Force from a base in Scotland, which is where was the first golf of Henry VIII, the first golf course? What's the name?
St. Andrews? St. Andrews? St. Andrews?
No. Anyhow, there was a base near that golf course, and I was every week going by a night train, sleeper, to not Glasgow, to what's the capital of
Edinburgh.
To Edinburgh,
yes.
And taken there to the Air Force Base. I had at least 2 or 3 flights per that day, and coming back to London. Now, all the very good connections that I had with the Royal Air Force, not only because what happened and they wanted to hear about it, but the commander, the chief of command of the Tactical Royal Air Force, Air Marshal Mickey Martin, he was an attaché in Israel years before, and he got actually a message from Ezer Weizmann that I am coming to London and to treat me well. So it was unbelievable. By the way, Mickey Martin was one of the pilots of the Dam Busters, if you know what I'm talking about.
No, exactly.
He was one of the pilots of the Dam Busters in the Second World War.
Amazing. Amazing. I've got a picture downstairs with the Dam Busters signed by some of the squadron leaders and those who took part. That's amazing. And also, we have to say who Isa Weitzman is for our viewers who don't know who he was. He served in the Battle of Britain and fought in the Battle of Britain. He was Jewish. He made Aliyah to Israel, and he also became a president of Israel in the 1990s. Is that correct?
Yeah, Isa Weitzman, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Can you also share with us another amazing feat in Israeli aviation history? And that was a war that's not very widely known, and that is the War of Attrition that occurred in '68 between the Egyptians and Israel over the Sinai Peninsula, between the Suez Canal and Israel. And for the first time ever, any Western country actually engaged Soviet MiGs in a dogfight. But not only that, there were Soviet or Russian pilots flying those MiGs belonging to the Egyptians. Can you just share this remarkable story of how the Israeli Air Force shot down Russian MiGs with Russian pilots in it, and was the only conflict in the whole entire Cold War when one Western nation, Israel, went up against the Soviet Union?
Well, it was in 1969, the air battle between the Russian MiG-21 and Mirage 3, Israeli Mirage 3, a French airplane. I was then in London, and I got, of course, on the telex, the information. When it happened, after a few minutes, I got on it already the telex, and I couldn't believe the 6 Russian MiG-21s were shot down by Israeli Phantoms, because we had already the Phantoms, the American Phantoms, and Mirage. And the British liaison officer who worked with me on behalf of the Royal Air Force, he called me about 5 or 10 minutes after it happened, because they already knew, and he said, "Can you tell me a few things what happened there?" Well, I said, "Look, I am here in London, I am not there, so I cannot actually tell you. Within a few hours, I will know more details and I will tell you." So we had lunch, we had coffee in the afternoon, and I told him what I could tell him, but not anymore, because it was based a lot of intelligence, how the Russians are going to fly, how they are training. We knew everything through the intelligence information. And the success was that we actually gave them, how do you say, a trap. We did a certain trap that they saw a few Mirage airplanes that tried to get into them, and then the Phantoms came from above, and the battle started, and so we shot down 6 MiG-21s. It was the first time in history that a MiG-21 was shot by an Air Force from the Western world. It was unbelievable.
Amazing.
And you know that actually we had a lot of information on the MiG-21. You know, a MiG-21 deserted from Iraq with a Christian pilot, Iraqi Christian pilot, and landed in Israel. And that was the first time that a MiG-21 was in Western world. One of our greatest pilots, Danny Shapira, called, after about 1 day, flew already the MiG-21. So we learned a lot about this aircraft before the war, before the attrition war. And that MiG-21, after we did everything we had to do with him, we gave it to the Americans so they could learn also about the MiG-21 as much as possible.
That's amazing. I didn't know that story. That's amazing. Thank you. You've flown one of these known as the F-4 Phantoms that really became famous during the Vietnam War. that the American pilots used to fly. Share with us what it's like to fly in the famous Phantom F4.
Well, there I have about 80 to 100 hours, about 100 hours on the F4 as a navigator. We called it a working horse because it was a working horse. It was an enormous, strong airplane with two unbelievable GE engines, unbelievable. And to fly it, you could fly it about 50,000 feet, which is very, very high. And our reconnaissance squad, we had a reconnaissance squadron that used special equipped Phantoms in order to fly and reconnaissance over Egypt. And no MiG-21 could reach those airplanes, no one, because they were flying with special suits, not only G suits, but actually astronaut suits. And they were flying on a height of about 60,000 feet, 60,000 feet. You know, the maximum I flew was 48,000. Already from 48,000 feet, you can see the round shape of the Earth. You could see the round shape of the Earth from 48. Now, imagine what you could see from 60,000.
That's incredible. Amazing. So, share with us how in 1972 you became the head of organization and planning at the Israeli Air Force, and what did that role involve?
Well, this position was I was told that I'm going to be in that position when I was in London. The Israeli Air Force Commander Moti Hod came to London in order to have some meetings with the Royal Air Force. And he told me that when I come back to Israel in 1972, this is going to be my job. Now, this is one of the most important positions in the Air Force, in any organization, because I was in charge of organization and planning of the Israeli Air Force. When I say organization, where will be this squadron? Where will be the other squadron? What kind of organization in this base or another base? I was in charge of that. And I was in charge when anything happens, actually the Yom Kippur War, 73, I was in charge of mobilizing everything what the Israeli Air Force needed, pilots, mechanics, soldiers, everything. And we had a very unpleasant situation in those days. And the one who was most worried from all of us was General Moshe Dayan. He decided this is the third destructions of the state of Israel. There was the first temple, the second temple, and he was so worried that this is going to be the third destruction of Israel. But the morale in the Israeli Air Force was still very high, even though that in the first 2-3 days, we lost a lot of airplanes, We lost about 32 Phantoms and other Skyhawks and so on. And then there was the air train from the United States to Israel, was very big, in order to supply us with new Phantoms, new Skyhawks, and so on. But the end of it was, as everyone knows, that actually this was the reason, the main reason, this war, after we won it, to the agreement, to the peace agreement between Sadat and Begin.
Remarkable. But do you think that the lessons and the success of the Six-Day War weren't learnt, particularly by Golda Meir, who was the prime minister, who felt that that she wanted to show that Israel was not the aggressor, that the Egyptians and the Syrians were the aggressor, and that Israel had to absorb some form of attack in order to gain support of President Nixon and other world leaders at the time. Do you think that was a critical mistake? Because one of the greatest success of the Six-Day War, and you were part of that, was Israel's preemptive strike. To see the build-up of troops, to see the build-up of the armed forces, to know that war was coming very quickly, and to act decisively. Or do you think it was a sense of that Israel was overconfident because of the success of the Six-Day War?
Well, first of all, the prime minister was not Golda Meir, it was Eshkol.
No, I mean in 73. In 73, yeah, Golda Meir, yeah.
It was, yeah. In 73 was Golda Meir. Yes, there is some true elements in what you said. The victory gave us so much confidence, actually overconfident. We were overconfident that unfortunately happened what happened in 73. But actually, the main reason what happened in 73, that we were attacked and surprised, was the chief in the general staff of the armed forces, the chief of intelligence, Zeira, Eli Zeira, who said that the Egyptians are not going to attack. It's only a maneuver, because we were ready. The 73 war happened on a Saturday. We were ready on Friday morning to attack the Egyptians with all the ammunition, everything. What we got at about 4 o'clock in the morning on a Friday before that Saturday to stop the whole operation, because he said that the Egyptians are only making a maneuver and they are not going to attack. So he is the one that up to this day, this very moment, he's all the time blamed that he was the main reasons that it was a surprise for us.
And Shaya, can you also share how proud you were when you were actually given the appointment of a colonel, the position of colonel in the Israeli Air Force? And what did that mean? What is the responsibility of a colonel in the Israeli Air Force?
Well, I got the rank of the colonel in 1972 when I came back from London. And the one who gave me the rank was Dado. Dado, he was general, he was the CNC of the armed forces. And you know, I cannot actually tell you what exactly how I felt. I felt that a boy from a Holocaust went through all what happened in the Second World War, became a navigator Israeli Air Force, and now he, with me was my wife, my 3 children, my 2 children, 2 daughters. The third one came later on. Sorry, she said that all the 3 were already there. And this small boy, Shaya, in Polish Stasio, is a colonel in one of the most successful air forces in the world, and not one in the most successful only, but the Israeli Air Force. For me, it was a feeling that I will never, never forget in my life.
Yeah, it's astonishing. Your story is absolutely astonishing, absolutely amazing, Shaya. To the current day, I know you can't reveal too much, but we know a day might be coming when Israel might have to take out Iran's nuclear weapons, because we know the Iranian regime has threatened constantly to wipe the state of Israel off the face of the earth. We know that they are constantly supplying and arming and training Hamas, Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And we know that this is the world's most dangerous regime, and if they have the world's most dangerous weapon, they will use it. What are your thoughts on a possible Israeli airstrike on Iran's nuclear facilities? We know it's achievable. I know it's a difficult thing to talk about, but we know from Israel's experience and your experience that Israel will never, ever allow another Holocaust or another genocide against the Jewish people again. And if Israel has to act alone, they'll act alone. Just tell us how capable the pilots and the navigators in the Israeli Air Force are to complete a mission like this.
I can tell you one thing, that we will never allow that a Holocaust will happen to our nation. Never. I believe very much in the Israeli Air Force. I am totally confident that the Israeli Air Force can perform any mission that we're told to do. More than that, I cannot tell you.
That's good enough. And finally, can you just really share with us the work that you are doing with other Holocaust survivors to share not only your story about what you went through the Holocaust, but also building up a real support network of other Holocaust survivors that have served with distinction within the Israeli Air Force, and to teach the next generation and generations to know the truth about what happened during the Second World War to the Jewish people like yourself and to Zippy, your wife, as well?
Well, out of those 142 navigators and pilots that were out of 300 in 1956, today they are alive about 38 or 37. Most of them are not in a position to lecture or to speak in front of people. I and another 5 or 6, altogether 6 or 7, I am lecturing every week in schools, high schools. I'm lecturing in air bases, in Air Force squadrons, in military bases, not Air Force only. And I'm trying to give the impressions to the youngsters, because all of them are youngsters compared to me, that we did what we had to do, and we were handling the flag. And my generation is transferring to hold the flag and to protect the state of Israel, as we did during all those years. When I say we did, is also a lot of generations between me and the ones that I'm lecturing to.
Wonderful. And finally, I just ask you what my last and final question for tonight, Shaya, and that is, because you survived the horrors of the Holocaust, and none of us can understand what you went through because we weren't in your shoes, despite the fact we can watch films about the Holocaust, we can hear testimonies like yourself on the Holocaust as well. Did that give you the motivation to succeed in the Israeli Air Force, but also to want to protect the only Jewish state during Israel's major wars in her history?
Well, I always say to those that I'm lecturing that I came from there to here, to Israel. They are born in Israel. They don't know what the Jews suffered during hundreds of years, actually we say always 2,000 years, yeah? And for me, the state of Israel is the jewel, the Kohinor in the crown. And if they will understand that there is no other place in the world, and I believe in it, what I'm saying now, I believe in it, for a Jew, if he wants to be a Jew, if somebody doesn't want to Jew, I have no conversation with him. But if somebody wants to be a Jew, the only place in the world is Israel, because this is a Jewish state. Anti-Semitism was always. Anti-Semitism was during World War II. Anti-Semitism is today, especially in Europe, but also in the United States. And if you don't want that somebody in the street will call you bloody Jew, this is the place, no other place in the world.
Absolutely. I just want to thank you so much, Shaya. Before I hand over to David to close, this opportunity to interview you, to hear about your remarkable career in the Israeli Air Force. And I personally want to thank you as a Christian Zionist and a lover of Israel. Thank you so much for the role you played in defending the skies of Israel and for telling your remarkable story about surviving the Shoah, but going on to be a colonel in the Israeli Air Force. It doesn't get better than that. You're a true Israeli hero, and it's an absolute honor that I've had the privilege to interview tonight. And I'm just going to pass you over to Dr. David Elms.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for the initiative.
Pleasure.
Indeed. And Shaya, yes, I would endorse what Simon has said. It's been an amazing event. But I want to ask you an important question, which I know our viewers tonight and those who will be looking at this later would want to know as well. We've heard from you an astounding story of great victories. And certainly it actually changed me, particularly in 1967. In my understanding of scripture and so on. But these amazing victories and the skill and the courage of the human are wonderful. But we see in the Tanakh, we see in the scriptures how great victories were wrought, but behind it all was God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And all the glory and the fame was ultimately given to him. And when it wasn't, of course, that's when the nation lost its way. I want to ask you, in all these years, and from the Holocaust to being a colonel in one of the greatest countries in the world, in the Air Force, where does your faith stand in these years of your life now?
Well, this is a question that for me, it's unpleasant to answer, but I will answer. I am not a believer, unfortunately. Not a believer at all. I believe in myself, and the most important that I wanted to tell you by the end is my family. I am married to also a woman, unbelievable woman, a strong woman, a beautiful woman, also Holocaust survivor from Slovakia. Her name is Sipi, and she lost her father in the Holocaust. And I am proud of my 3 daughters. They give me a lot of strength. Of my 3 son-in-laws, very known. One of them is very known in Israel because he's #1 lawyer in this country. I am proud in my 9 great children, and I am proud in my 7 great grandchildren. This is my revenge to the Nazis, my family. This is my greatest revenge. Mm. And the second revenge to the Nazis is the state of Israel. Mm. Mm. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Can I just say, Shaya, I would just like to close this time. We're just reading to you from your scriptures, from the Jewish scriptures, because, of course, for us, wonderful story, and as those 2 critical points that you've raised, but also we still believe as Christians in the God of Israel. And he inspired these words, which with respect I'd like to read to you and to all our viewers tonight, from Psalm 91. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust, for it is he who delivers you from the snare of the trapper and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you may seek refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and a bulwark. You will not be afraid of the terror by night, or of the arrow that flies by day. May God bless you, and thank you for this.
Thank you, all of you, and be strong as you are all the time. And first of all, I am jealous to the people who really believe in the Almighty. Unfortunately, I am different, but I have to tell the truth, not to lie. So go ahead and be strong and be good friends of the State of Israel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're muted, Simon.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Shaya, I just want to thank you so much for being our special guest tonight for this Jerusalem Dispatch ICJ live broadcast, and just pray that you and your family continue to stay safe. And I look forward to you coming back to London and also telling your remarkable stories to the RAF again, to a younger generation of British pilots, so that our two air forces can be as one to meet the threats and challenges that the West face today. So thank you for being such an amazing Israeli hero. Thank you for defending the skies, the Israeli skies, but also in defeating Hitler and the Nazis with your family, story of survival. So it's been a pleasure tonight, and yeah, God bless you. Thank you.
Defeating Hitler, we have to remember one person in the world, one leader. His name is Churchill. His name is Churchill. I read all his books, and I am a great admirer of this man. Thank you very much for having me, and I hope this is not the last time. Bye.
Bye-bye. So I want to thank you all for watching tonight's Jerusalem Dispatch. We've heard Shaya's remarkable story, and we want to hear more stories like his, because they are really inspirational and really show really the men and the women who serve with distinction in defending the modern state of Israel. So please support the ministry that is the International Christian Embassy of Jerusalem in their love towards Israel and the Jewish people, by helping Holocaust survivors, by building bomb shelters to protect Israelis from Hamas's rockets and missiles, and showing comfort to the people of Israel. So shalom, and God bless, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Shalom, shalom.